Good evening, troops. How are we all this evening? I'm just making sure that I've got you on my phone so that I can double check questions for this evening. Right, we're on, it's working. Excellent. How are we all? I hope you've all had a lovely Wednesday. A couple of bits of housekeeping before we start and before I formally introduce the lovely Rachel sitting next to me here. Tomorrow is National Dog Breeder Day. Okay, so I really need you guys to get behind it. I really need you guys to support it. We need to get it trending. If we are going to start to change the way that we're viewed as breeders, and if we're really going to make an impact with the National Dog Breeder Day, it's going to take more than me just promoting it tomorrow on social media. So in the group, there are loads of pre-made graphics, and there are loads of pieces of web copy that you can use. Just pinch what you like, you know, hold it down, copy and paste, save it on your phones. And tomorrow, if everybody in this group were to do one post on their social media, preferably Twitter if you've got it, but if you haven't, any other social media platform is great, a post and using hashtag National Dog Breeder Day. If we can get it trending, it might get picked up by some journalists. And if it gets picked up by journalists, then we get an opportunity to explain to people that we're not all evil puppy farmers. And actually, you know, there are some really, really passionate, excellent dog breeders out there who want to make a difference, instead of us all getting, you know, battered down all the time with the bad press that we cop. You know, it's time to, you know, stand up for ourselves a little bit, really, and actually say, do you know what, we're over here doing the right thing. And that's what tomorrow's all about. It's a celebration of everything ethical and brilliant about all of the hard work, the blood, sweat and tears that I know you guys all put into raising your puppies. And that is what tomorrow is all about. So I'm going to be jumping up and down on social media all day tomorrow. But it would be really cool if I could have a little army of you lot all doing the same. So please look in the group, the graphics are there, steal them, use them, duplicate them, do whatever you want to them. Just make sure you add the hashtag National Dog Breeder Day. Cheers, guys. The next best thing is that tomorrow at 1:30, we have Beverly Cuddy live in the group, and she is going to be announcing the Fish for Dogs competition winner. Okay, so if you've been tagging friends and responding to that post, we're going to be putting the names into a random generator thing on Google, and Beverly Cuddy is going to be announcing the winner of that prize. It's like 80 quid's worth of Fish for Dogs food, which is really, really good quality food, full of omega-3s, which is really good for your dogs and your puppy's brain development. I feed Fish for Dogs, so I'm an advocate of it, but it's really good. And the training treats and the package that they've put together, it's over 80 quid's worth of food. So Beverly will be announcing that tomorrow. So without further ado, welcome Rachel. Rachel is a very experienced veterinary nurse. She has dealt with pretty much everything, and if she hasn't dealt with it here, she's definitely dealt with it abroad, because she's like international. She goes everywhere saving dogs and working really hard, and she's here this evening to have a bit of a chat with us about hand feeding puppies. I'm sure Rachel will agree that as a veterinary nurse, she's the first port of call quite often. If we're distressed and we don't know how to deal with a puppy, and we're having a problem with a puppy or a litter of puppies, we ring the vets, and the first person that we generally speak to is the veterinary nurse. Would you not agree with that, Rachel?
Oh, definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's definitely part of our role, is to be that sort of intermediate person from reception to the vet. So if we can take anything from the vet, then we will do. Yeah, helping with litters of puppies, definitely. Obviously, if it's a clinical decision, then the vet will reply, and then we just transfer that and give that information to the client, via the vet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're the communication link, definitely,
between the two. So you know, would it be fair to say that if you had a litter of puppies and you were struggling and you weren't sure if they were feeding, or if you weren't sure there was enough milk, any of those kind of regular questions, you guys in the vets are the ones that generally are doing that kind of hands-on work, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely, and more so with the sort of emergency vets, you know, the bigger clinics and the hospitals, because it, you know, it tends to be during the night, doesn't it?
Always.
Yeah. So if you're a first opinion vet, I mean, I'm in first opinion, but you know, yeah, if it goes out of hours and it goes to the hospitals, then yeah, the army of nurses there as well are well used to these phone calls, definitely.
So from a breeder's point of view, let's sort of paint the picture of a breeder who's maybe not that experienced, and they've got a litter of puppies and they're concerned that perhaps the mother is maybe not producing milk, or maybe doesn't seem that settled and doesn't seem to want to be with it. Maybe she's a maiden bitch, never had puppies before, and they're feeling like they need to maybe top the puppies up. What's your sort of, you know, how do you break it down whether we do need to top them up or not? How do we decide whether it's the right time to intervene?
Yeah, I think the puppies will certainly tell you if they're hungry. I mean, they're very vocal. I mean, they'll squeak, they'll crawl around, they'll be looking for food, and that's one of the first indications, really, is that they're not settled. You know, if a puppy's happy, they'll be asleep and not making a noise. Yeah, obviously it's difficult to tell with newborn puppies because their eyes are closed, but yeah, they're still and they're quiet. If they're making noises and they're crawling around trying to find milk, then that's an indication that they're probably hungry. Yeah.
Okay. And you know, if say, for example, how would you tell if the bitch was producing milk or not? Because obviously if it's coming from the teat straight into the puppy, you can't always see if they're getting enough food. Like how would a new breeder know that the puppies, apart from the noise and the squeaking, how do they know? Like if the puppy's a bit lethargic, if it wasn't squeaking because it wasn't well, like, what are the other signs?
Yeah, I mean, the puppy will be obviously quiet, as you've mentioned, but also they'll be less mobile, and the stomachs might be, you know, when a puppy's full, it's got like a little tubby tummy. You know, you can see it when it hasn't got a full tummy. You can see its rib shape, and the tummy's empty. I think that's the main thing, is recognizing when it's got a full tummy, when it's got an empty tummy.
Okay, that's really useful. So say we've got a healthy litter and everything's going okay, and one or two, and you think, okay, everything's going okay. Obviously, first always advised to be swapping puppies over.
And take the puppies. You know, a couple of times a day, miss one out and agree to puppies. Yeah. I would say some breeds have smaller litters, don't they? You may have 4 or 5, but then when you get into the bigger breeds, then you certainly need to be supplementing. Yeah.
On average, your bitch has got laces. You've got more puppies than that, bar to feed all of the puppies.
Yeah.
So you would tend to put collars on them. It's difficult to tell them apart. So I put I can identify which are which, and then they have a feed, and then they have a feed, and that.
Yeah, the temperature of the feed, you mean, or temperature of the pups?
Both.
Yeah, so I have made a note of some temperatures. So rectal temperatures at birth should be, and that increases gradually to 37.8 by 1 week of age. So it's really important that we supply some best. So that's a remote heat lamp above them, and with plenty of space as well. So they do get a little bit warm, they can move away. Cold puppies, or if they're wanting to huddle to keep warm, they will all huddle together. If puppies are warm, they move away, and they sleep separately. They spread out. So you need to have a bedding area that's able to have heat lamps rather than like a focus point of heat. So sort of hot water bottles wrapped up. So if the puppies can't move away, they're going to burn themselves.
Hot on them. And then once the puppy is at the correct temperature, I know that they have problems with digestion if they're too cold. They just, you know, because they can't regulate their temperature, they literally cannot process the food that you put into them. So you've dealt with the temperature, you're alternating between the puppies so that we're making sure everybody's getting an opportunity at the milk bar, but still we've got one that doesn't seem to be, or two that don't seem to be. So we're at that stage and we're thinking, okay, we're going to have to go in here and do something about this. So what's the next steps?
So I think if they're taking some milk from the mum, then what you can do is supplement from probably about a third or maybe half of supplement feed to supplement the mum's food as well.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to do too much, but just supplement a little bit.
Up. So what would you do? What do you guys advise? Do you advise taking milk or colostrum, as it may well be in those early days? Would you take that from the mother
I think that's probably best, because I think colostrum is, I mean, it's so important,
Absolutely.
isn't it, in any species? So I think for then, yeah, great. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be perfect.
For anybody that doesn't know what colostrum is, for the first period of time when your bitch is feeding her puppies, it's not actually milk that she's feeding the puppies. It's a substance called colostrum, and in that colostrum it is like the substance of life. Okay, it's got antibodies, it's going to help your puppy with immunities. It is the food of life. Basically, it strengthens their blood, their immune, the whole 9 yards, and it's very, very important that puppies get that in those first few days. And then after a few days of that colostrum, and it varies from bitch to bitch, their milk, we call the milk, gets let down. And the milk all of a sudden seems to come in, and it happens differently to different bitches. It can be 12 hours in one bitch, it can be 2-3 days in another bitch. So it's completely different on each one. But that colostrum that Rachel's referring to, if you don't know what it is, it's super important that the puppies get that. In the first instance.
So I think, you know, if it's possible and the bitch will allow, then it's a good idea to collect them if you can, and then if you do end up supplementing, then you can mix some of the colostrum in with the supplemented milk. I mean, obviously we've got to think of situations where puppies might be hand reared as well. You know, there's always those.
Well, that was where I was going with it. So we've in the instance where you can use mum's milk, you should, you know, colostrum or milk, you should. Okay, so what about in the instance where maybe mum's not around, or maybe mum has an infection and she has to have antibiotics, which is going to affect the milk, or maybe you've just got a puppy that is struggling to suckle, because that does happen, and they're just, you know, they struggle to get on, they struggle to get, and you feel that you need to actually properly be supplementing them for whatever reason. So let's from the next equation eliminate mum's milk and say we don't have that, but we have a hungry puppy. So what do we feed them at that point? Is there a product or
there's some really good products. I think Royal Canin have a really good range of baby milk. So what I've noted down that's on the market at the moment, there's Royal Canin Puppy Protec. I think you can get that in England now. It's kind of
I use it.
Yeah, so it's really good. Then you've got the Royal Canin baby milk, which is like the sort of budget range. The Protec is like the one above that. You've got the beef lactol puppy milk, which is budget again. You've got Welpie as well, which was always the one that we always used to use when I worked for the Dogs Trust, you know. So Welpie's been, you know, right through. It's
been around for years. Okay, guys, I hope you're all writing this down. You're hearing it from the horse's mouth of what the professionals are using. Okay.
But I think if it was me, I would want to go for the top stuff, and I think the Royal Canin Puppy Protec is probably.
I think the Protec, from memories, the Protec is the colostrum replacer.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you would move on. So for very early days, you'd feed the Protec and then move on to something like Welpie if the puppy was a little bit older.
Yeah, because that first 3 days is so critical, isn't it, with newborn puppies? I mean, we see, you know, in vet practice, unfortunately we see things happen, you know, with the mum, you know, people are breeding, whether it be a pet breeder or hobby breeder, and the mum unfortunately, you know, passes away for whatever reason, and everybody's got to step in. So whether it be illness, you know, death during a cesarean section, that's quite common. And rejection.
It does happen. It does. You think it's never going to happen to you, but it does happen. It's the reality of it. Yeah.
And the other one is rejection as well. You know, I've seen cases where the mum just will not have anything to do with the puppies, and worse still, will threaten to kill the puppies. I've certainly seen that. So, you know, the puppy safety and the mum's well-being is to separate them. Yeah, and hand rear. Yeah.
Okay. So, what would you advise breeders to have at home? So what do you guys have on hand? What stuff, what kit should we be having? You know, what is really required for this job?
Yeah, I think you certainly need somewhere amazing for them to sleep. So a box is great. So just a comfy box that's got towels in, and clean towels. You need to be cleaning it sort of 3-4 times a day. So every time it's soiled, then you need to clean. And then somewhere quiet, so there's not lots of, in the first, you know, few days, not lots of traffic, and because although we know they can't see, and can't hear, but they can feel the vibrations, they can feel stress and things like that, the environmental stress. It's got to be really, really quiet for the first, the first few days, definitely. Yeah, so nice comfy box, clean towels, and then you need feeding utensils as well. So the best thing is the bottles with the flexible teats on. Usually they come in different sizes. The problem, what we try not to encourage is syringe feeding or dropper feeding, because I'm sure we'll talk about later about problems with using those. So it's got to be the bottles with the teats. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And all of these items are available to purchase. The feeding equipment is available to purchase online. It's an easy thing to get hold of. So you've got your puppy, you've got your stuff, you've got your milk. What kind of temperature? How do we make this stuff? How warm should it be? How cold should it be? How are we going to make sure we're not burning them?
Yeah, I've got some temperatures here. So puppies at less than 2 weeks of age, 29 to 32 degrees centigrade, with 55 to 65 degrees humidity. All right, and then environmental temperature can be reduced to 27 degrees after 1 week, and then 22 degrees centigrade after 4 weeks. Yeah,
super. But what about the actual milk itself? If we're going to make the milk
30,
up,
38 degrees.
38 degrees for the milk. Okay, that's fantastic.
But it's just blood, like we do with human babies.
Yeah.
Just to double temperature. Yeah.
But some people don't have human babies. So some people just opt for dog babies, which is much better. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. So right, so 38 degrees to make it, and then you're feeding it to them. Obviously, one of the biggest concerns I see in the group, people asking questions around aspiration. So they're going to give the puppy the milk, and we don't want the puppy swallowing it going down the wrong hole and getting into their lungs. How can you avoid that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I see a lot, and I'm sure you see it as well, when people might post it on social media, they've got the puppy upside down and they're feeding it like that. With the bottle, so the puppy is upside down, but it's upside down on their knee. So that is the biggest reason for aspiration and choking and what have you. So they have to be the right way up, and then you use the bottle and just get them latched on, so you're not squeezing the bottle and trying to put as much milk in as possible. You have to watch them swallow and take it really slowly. That's the reason why we don't use the syringes, because it's really tempting just to go and push it in, and as soon as the milk starts to come out of its nose, and that tells you you're going too quick, too fast. And there's a high risk then of aspiration, because it goes down the wrong hole and then the lungs, and then you get the pneumonia.
So if I'm sure you would be aware, there are people who are worried about doing this, but there are breeders who wouldn't feel confident to take this job on. And I mean, my advice I always say to people, if they're worried about it, is pop into your vet and ask them to show you how they're doing it. Don't just rely on a YouTube video or somebody telling you. Ask, just go in and say to your vet, I've got this puppy, could you please show me how you would do it?
So I think that is the main thing, is keeping them that way and not upside down. See it an awful lot, and it's a bit cringeworthy is seeing these puppies upside down being
the wrong way up. Definitely.
So
then the last thing that kind of goes hand in hand with this is, obviously, if you're feeding the puppies, you also have to toilet the puppies, because the natural process would be that mum would feed them milk and then she would clean them. So have you got any advice around that? Like, how do you physically do that? How would you advise people to physically do that? And how often and when do you need to do that?
And I think going back to the milk thing and feeding as well, I think it's really important that when we're bottle feeding, is they're actually handling the puppies. I mean, I've seen lots of gadgets and things where it's like a separate unit where you have the puppies gathered around. The puppies are not being physically touched then by humans. I think the human touch is really important. They can smell you. The puppies can smell as soon as they're born. That's how they locate the teats. So I think if you've got human smell around them while they're being fed, it's good. So I think these remote things where it's like a circle with like
a carousel. I've seen they're made of rubber, aren't they?
I'm not a big fan of those, because it means it's hands off, doesn't it? And the other thing is the sponges as well. You see these sponges where you soak them in milk, and I think with that one they're going to take on too much air.
too much air for me. I think before we answer the toileting question, I think for me it's very natural, and when you're talking about the handling of the puppies while you're feeding them, for me it's a very natural thing that whilst the puppy is feeding, it would naturally fight for its feed. Its paws would be going, its bum would be going, its body would be moving.
Jostling of the other puppies.
That kind of feeling that something else knocking into it, all of those, just something that you wouldn't even consider to be a thing, it actually is a thing, and it's part of the puppy's development. It's part of them learning dexterity, it's learning how to, they paddle with their paws to get the milk out of the teat, but what that actually does, it's exercise, and
developing the nervous system as well.
Completely. And because they're exercising, they're getting hungry, they're using their calories, they're eating some more, and they're growing some more, and all of those movements are really important. And the learning, the learning to touch, and also I think mentally resilient. So anybody who is seen, and I don't know if there's any scientific basis about what I'm going to say next, but I'm sure the breeders in the group that have had litters of puppies will resonate with me. If you've got one that is like nailing the feeding and is absolutely getting in there and is determined to feed, and you see that puppy and it's and it's this big and it's behaving like that kind of behavior in that puppy tends to continue right through into adulthood. So you see those personality traits developing even when they're feeding at this young age. So I do agree with you in what you're saying about the handling of the puppies when you're feeding them. It's food for puppies doesn't necessarily just come easy. They have to get in and get at it and make an effort, and that is a good trait for life. I'm not saying they should be hungry, but what I'm saying is that if you watch a litter of puppies at the milk bar, they're making an effort to get it. And I think it makes them a little bit mentally robust as well. I think it's all part of the natural, going on from what we were talking about, epigenetics and all the rest of it. All of these experiences that they have forms them. So I think
that's why, I mean, we've talked about it before with singleton puppies as well. It's really important to do lots of handling and buffeting and things like that to mimic other puppies while they're being fed, so they don't grow up that kind of the puppy, the personality where they can't cope with frustration and things like that, because there's a high incidence of aggression, isn't there, in singleton puppies. And there is, and like you say, not being able to cope with frustration in later life. And again, that's not necessarily a side of dogs that breeders would necessarily see. That's for people like her, who breed and train and see dogs further down the line. A singleton puppy that's had its own way, just like a child, just like an only child, like a spoilt child, if you like, constantly get their own way and never have to be told no, wait, because your brother's doing it, or I think it's called in psychology terms, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's called golden child syndrome. So something like that. I could be rude, but I won't. No, definitely. Right, so let's go back to the feed, the cleaning of their bums. Okay, so we fed them, they're happy, they've had their feed, we've got the temperature right, we've not drowned them in their own milk, it's all going well, we're winning. They're gaining weight, but constipation then becomes a problem because we're not mum would lick them clean. So what do we do there? So we've got to keep an eye and make sure that mum is doing that efficiently. I mean, I think it's up to 3 weeks that mum will do that. So she may stop that early, she may carry on, but we need to keep an eye and monitor when she stops that, and then monitor the puppies when they're in the poo. So if they get constipated, I mean, it's not common in puppies, but if it does happen, we certainly need to keep an eye on it. And then veterinary intervention. If they're bunged up, then we certainly need veterinary intervention. But you could certainly try sort of massage, just gently massaging the tummy, moving the back legs, a little bit, trying to get some action going, get them crawling, so that action will get the guts going, and then they might pass. But obviously we've got to clean that area as well. We've got to mimic what mum does with, just with a wet, damp cotton wool ball, and just gently mimic what the mum does around the area, around the genital area, out to the belly button, just gentle strokes. That might trigger, because obviously if I'm just thinking around the examples of we're hand feeding because mum's not feeding at all,
we have to toilet them, don't we? So you know, so you'd get a cotton wool ball and it would be warm, and you'd be holding the puppy. And how do you stroke up? Would you stroke down?
I would probably sort of mimic the mum's licking, so you can do both directions, but usually when I've seen it, it's from the genitals up towards the belly. And you can put a couple of strokes in the other way, and it just mimics the mum's tongue, gentle strokes, and then that should trigger.
That should stimulate a toilet. Fantastic, because that's an important part. We worry very much about getting food in the front end, but we don't worry, you know, we don't necessarily think or pay as much attention to getting them to go to the toilet at the other end. And obviously, with a good bitch feeding her puppies, you wouldn't even necessarily see that element of things, because they clean up so quickly. You don't always, you don't even realise that they've done it.
They usually do it in private as well, don't they? So when there's nobody watching, or at night time.
Absolutely. So awesome. Well, is there any other tips? Is there anything else that you know that
so I've kind of made,
want to share?
Yeah, I've kind of made some notes about how to notice if a puppy's unwell. So the persistent crying is one. So even if it's been fed and it's persistent crying, then that's a sign. If the puppy's not sleeping and not resting, and that can be a sign that the puppy's unwell. Maybe the puppy moves away from the litter. Just moving away, or the mum removes. I've seen that happen where the mum will actually get a hold of an unwell puppy and take it away from the nest. Like, get away. You're not well.
You're not well.
Yes, and that's a natural instinct, isn't it? And you put it back, and then
she still nudges it away.
So that would be one to consult a vet and maybe hand rear that one. Decreased activity as well. So although the puppies are moving around and one or two are not moving, there's a stark difference between those and the ones that are active, then that would be a sign of illness as well. Reluctance to feed, so they haven't got a strong suckle instinct would be one, and obviously we check for cleft palates as well. It's a bit of a thing about cleft palates. I mean, it was always that we would euthanize those puppies, but it's a difficult one, isn't it? It depends how severe it is as well. There's a high risk of aspiration, and if it's a minor one, they can be repaired.
They can be repaired,
So it depends on how the breeder feels, sort of emotionally, and practicality with that as well. As to whether to let that puppy continue.
I think there's a bit of a moral question around that for me. I think there's a bit of a moral question around that one for me, but you know, whether it's the right thing to do or not. But like you say, it's a case by case basis, and it depends on lots of different factors. So it's a bit of a trick. I know somebody who's got a dog with a cleft palate, and the dog's absolutely fine. She wouldn't breed from it. It was not a pet, but you know, it's fine. It is fine, and the cleft palate's been fixed. Equally, I do know people that have bred litters of puppies before, and they've had quite severe cleft palates and decided to put the puppies to sleep because they weren't going to have a decent quality of life. So I think it's I think that's a
I think the key is how severe it is.
Completely. So we've got a question here from Emma Walker asking, how much and how often would you feed each puppy if you were bottle feeding?
Bottle feeding. I have got that. Let's have a look. Bottle feeding. So vary from feeding every 2 to 6 hours. So it depends on how many there is and
how old they are.
How old they are. The first 3 days are the critical. So the first week, feed every 2 to 3 hours during the day up until midnight, and then at 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. is a good guide. If all's going well, reduce the feeding to every 4 hours during the second week and to every 6 hours during the third and fourth week. But it can vary, because what you have to do is monitor the weights. You know, if one's increasing weight more than the other, then you know to give that one a little bit more, etc.
Okay, super. I've got a question here. How would one go about feeding puppies with mega esophagus?
Mega esophagus. I mean that it might be difficult to identify early on, but it'll certainly become apparent when they get onto solid foods. What you have to do again, it's a degree of severity, a bit like the cleft palate, really. Sometimes it's not identified or diagnosed until a few weeks down the line.
Later.
Yeah. But again, it will be how you feel about raising a dog with megaesophagus, and the reasons for it as well. Is it congenital? Is it something that they've sort of acquired? Is there something else going on that's caused that kind of esophagus to be weak and flaccid? So yeah, I mean, they can be raised successfully. I mean, you know, with the raising where the dogs sit up, you know, on the table, they can live, but it depends on how dedicated a new owner is. Is a new owner going to take a dog or a puppy on like that? Okay. I think it's more diagnosed a bit later on. It's usually a few weeks or even months down the line, you know, with kind of regurgitation. Loads of investigations, and it might take a while to, actually got megaesophagus.
Yeah, this puppy keeps being sick. Yeah,
it's way down the line, I think. It's not something that's really when the few days
little. But if you suspected it, your advice would be to raise the food bowl up.
Yeah.
Okay, so that the dog is sitting back, got more of a chance to keep it down.
Yeah, because as soon as they're that way, it
comes straight back up again. Okay, no problem. I've got Janine Ellington asking, when would you decide to tube feed? Do you tube feed, and if so, when?
I think tube feeding's it's easy once you know how to do it. But I think it's something that the vets like to do themselves, because there is a massive risk of it going down the wrong hole. And if it goes into the lungs, unless you're experienced, it's very difficult to know whether it's in the lungs or into the tummy. And then obviously you can damage the lungs, and then you also get aspirated pneumonia as well. So I think with anything that's tube feeding like that, I think it's got to be done at the vet's.
Okay, no problem.
Personally, I think, yeah.
No, that's fair. Sammy says, regarding the megaesophagus, she's got 3 that were diagnosed at around 8 weeks. Or her friend, has got 3 doing well, diagnosed at around 8 weeks, and they're over 2 years. They have what they call Bailey chairs.
Yes, Bailey chairs, yeah.
Bailey chairs.
Yeah, and it's easy to train a dog to use one, so yeah.
Again, I suppose it just depends on what the severity of the situation is. I think that's it for the questions at the moment, guys. Has anybody got anything else that they would like to ask Rachel? Give them a minute, because there's a bit of a lag, so by the time we...
Yeah, sure. I've got sort of a couple of troubleshooting things as well.
Oh, brilliant, go for it.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes hand rearing will be complicated by problems such as vomiting, diarrhea, bloating, or aspiration of food. So temperature of the food, make sure that the food is at body temperature when feeding. We sort of mentioned that, sort of 30 degrees. Cold food can cause vomiting, but food that is too hot can burn, sort of on the way down. Speed, so watch out for feeding too quickly. Feed the milk over 1 to 2 minutes, and mixing the milk replacer. That's another one actually that I've seen in the past. If the milk replacer is not mixed according to direction, if it's
yes.
And mixing only enough replacer to last for 24 hours and refrigerating. So make sure that if it's not in the fridge, after a few hours, even an hour, chuck it out and make some fresh.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I've got Kerry saying she recently had a litter of 2 pups. One was gaining too much weight at 2 weeks, so the vet advised to remove from mum and put her with mum every 4 hours. Was that the right advice?
Yeah, sounds good, because you don't want them too fat, do you? Definitely. Being underweight is just as bad as being overweight, and vice versa. Yeah, so I think that's good advice. Yeah.
Okay. And Janine says, is there any advice on weaning?
Yeah, weaning. I mean, I think a lot of people start it too late, when you can actually be starting at sort of 3.5, 4 weeks, and mixing sort of your milk replacer with your food that you're feeding. So whether it be dry food, pre-soak it and mix it up so it's a mush, and yeah, get them going. Yeah, if you're natural feeding, then a lot of the companies now have puppy pastes. I don't know whether I'm allowed to mention any companies, but there's there's quite a few really good raw food companies now that are doing puppy pastes. So that's for like 3-week-old puppies.
Good to get into them because
Yeah.
it's mushed up.
Yeah.
Inez says, regards hand rearing puppies, what would your must have to be on hand just in case? What's the one thing that you would have as a just in case?
Heat lamps, definitely. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, try not to do the focal point heat, so no hot water bottles or anything like that. It's pretty dangerous. Heat pads, pretty dangerous. So yeah, heat lamps are probably the main thing. Yeah,
the main thing. Okay, cool. Grace says, is there a particular make of bottle that you use for feeding?
I think there's one called Escalap, isn't there? And Beaver do them as well, that do the puppy milk. But if you ring the vets, they'll order you one in, and we can get them from our wholesalers, being the end of the day or the next day. Yeah,
super. Now Rachel says that, and I know that there's going to be some of you who say my vets wouldn't be that open and helpful with me, okay, and that's kind of link into something that somebody that we're going to be speaking to tomorrow evening, who is Caroline Taylor, who's going to be speaking to us about improving the vet breeder relationship. And I'm sure Rachel won't mind me saying that as breeders we do get a bit of flack from vets at times. I'm very lucky. I've got a wonderful vet who is pro breeder. He's quite happy to engage with me and support me and educate me, as as the years have gone on. He's been my vet for nearly 20 years, and that's great. But there are circumstances, some breeders, Rachel, that don't feel comfortable to go to their vet because vets see a lot of rescue dogs, vets see the not so great side of the story, so they can't always help the way that they feel about it.
And I think it is difficult because we do see the bad side of it, but the reason why we've got puppy dealers is because there's not enough responsible breeders. And for me, it's like, I can't understand why they can't see that. If they ostracize all the homebred puppies, we're going to get more dealers, which is going to annoy you more.
Exactly that.
So yeah, I'm maybe it's just because I've been in veterinary practice for 26 years, I've seen it all, and I'm not anti-breeder, I'm not anti-responsible breeder, No,
that's right.
What but,
just if you need equipment, then your vet they can sell it to you. If there's stuff you need, if you were to ring your vet and say to your vet, can I have your help and advice on this? And obviously we're going to touch on this a little bit more tomorrow with Caroline, but getting in and speaking to the veterinary nurses and saying, can you show me, can you help me? I'm happy to pay for your experience and your years of training. Can you show me how the professionals do it? If you come across that way, it makes things, and then you're going to get good service and you're going to get good equipment.
Yeah, and I think with sort of older veterinary nurses, you might get a more sympathetic sort of response, because I think vet nurses that are coming straight out of university, or they've just got the degree, that's all they know. What's happened in the last 3 or 4 years is puppy surge and the dealers, so they're going to probably be more black and white and a bit more anti-breeder than, let's say, the older nurses that see both sides.
A bit more. Absolutely, that's really good advice. But I think from my point of view, being able to have a relationship with the vet, even if it means that, because I worry about buying equipment online. Okay, I worry about the grade of it. I worry about whether it's been tested or not. I worry if the plastic is, the latex that I'm using, the plastic that I'm using is safe for my animals. I don't like to just buy cheap stuff off the internet and then use it for my puppy to be ingesting food through. But if I'm buying it from my vet or through my vet, I know it's going to be veterinary approved, tested, safe. I know that those products that I'm going to get through the veterinary practice are going to be safe to use on my puppies. So for me, feeling confident to say to the vet, please, can you help me? Is a big thing, because I think it opens lots of doors in that regard. And not being worried about asking advice. What's going to happen now is you're going to get a million friend requests and everybody's going to be asking you for advice.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
The other thing that Rachel is very passionate about, and she is actually a teacher of, is Canine First Aid, and she's developed a course that is her own Canine First Aid course, and she's got a page on Facebook. It is Canine First Aid Workshops with Rachel Bean, and if anybody's interested in gaining that qualification, just drop her a message. I've already spoken to her before we started the live. You're quite happy for people to drop you a line, aren't you, Rachel?
Yeah.
You know, and the Canine First Aid qualification is actually a very valuable one for all of us, not just for puppies and not just for hand-rearing puppies. I'm talking about, we're dog owners at the end of the day, and it, you know, it's a really valuable qualification. I've done it myself and it's absolutely fantastic, so highly recommend. If anybody wants any advice from Rachel, I'm sure she'll be happy to speak to you guys about that. So is there any further questions? I don't think there are. I've been keeping my eye on. I think you've asked some really cool questions tonight, guys, and Rachel's given us some super advice. Oh, hang on, I've got something's popping up. Yep, so Sammy's saying, highly recommend you do Rachel's course. It's taught me, so interesting. I've had to use it a few times with my dog and wouldn't recommend anyone else for the training. Oh, there you go. Getting a review already. Excellent, excellent. So I just want to thank you very much. Thank you a million thank yous for coming and being with us this evening. It's been so useful, really useful, and I hope you guys have got some great tips. Like I say, don't forget National Dog Breeder Day tomorrow. Please go down the page, grab the graphics. You know, we're never going to change this stuff, and how we're viewed and being able to speak to vets and veterinary nurses and all of that is all linked into raising awareness. So hashtag National Dog Breeder Day, get on it. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to post it all over Facebook, Twitter, Insta, everywhere.
Yes.
All right, guys, have a lovely evening, and we will see you all tomorrow at 1:30 with Beverly Cuddy, and then at 7:30 tomorrow evening with Caroline Taylor. Cool. Have a lovely evening, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.